I am counting every blessing, counting every blessing, letting go and trusting when I cannot see. I am counting every blessing, counting every blessing.
Welcome to the ND 500 podcast. On today's show, we're talking about trusting where God is leading you. Today's text comes from Genesis chapter 22, verses 1 and 2. Now it came to pass, after these things, that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. Verse 2. Then he said, Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. I want to focus in on verse 2 because out of all of my years of studying Abraham in this text, oftentimes we focus on the big picture. We focus on Abraham sacrificing his son. But just like many, I missed what was said in verse 2. I missed that God had instructed Abraham to go to a mountain in which he will tell him later. So throughout this journey, Abraham had no idea which mountain he was going to sacrifice his son. Scholars argue that Abraham and his son traveled some 50 to 60 miles over a course of 3 days to go to this mountain in which Abraham had no idea which mountain God was leading him. But Abraham had to trust that God was leading him where he should be. And likewise, you may be at a point in your life where you're not sure where God is leading you. You're confused or you can't hear from God. It doesn't seem like things are going your way. But just like Abraham, I want to encourage you to just trust where God is leading you. As we look at the story of Abraham, God definitely blessed Abraham because this is the second time where God has instructed Abraham to go someplace in which he would tell him later, specifically where he would end up. If you remember, in chapter 12, when God first told Abraham to pack his things and go to a land in which he would tell him later. So at that point in time, Abraham had no idea where he was going. And here it is again in chapter 22, where God has actually blessed him with the son. But now that he's blessed him with that son, God tests Abraham and he instructs Abraham to take his son to a mountain in which he would tell him later. So you can imagine this travel. Abraham is thinking in his mind, here we go again. This is the second time God has told me to go someplace in which he will lead me, a place which I have no idea which I am going. So just like Abraham, regardless of what you're going through today, regardless of how you're feeling, just trust that God is leading you in the right direction. And if God has given you a promise, perhaps that God is simply testing your faith, but all you have to do is trust God, trust his leading, and a blessing will definitely show up. Until next time, live in truth.